It's something I have to remind myself of every single day is that our worth is not defined by the world's definition of our productivity, and that you are in control of defining what your worth really is, right?
Welcome to the Other 99% podcast. I'm your host, Lisa Duck, a coffee loving direct sales enthusiast who's obsessed with a good digital system. Come join me for a realistic look into the world of direct sales. We'll explore inspiring perspectives, learn about unique business tips, and celebrate success stories that often go untold. Because on the other 99%, every seller matters. Hey everyone, it is me, Lisa, and welcome back to another episode of The Other 99%. I am here with our co-host, Susan Larimer, and we are so excited to have our special guest here with us, Megan Sumrell. And Megan, I would just love for you to jump in and tell our listeners sort of who you are, what you do, and all that stuff. I'm sure many people know who you are, but there might be a few who don't. So
I'm sure there are many that do not. So thank you for having me here today. It's always fun when I get to be in an environment where we are talking with a community of women in direct sales, network marketing, because it holds a very near and dear place in my heart. So my background was actually graduated from college with a math major and landed myself in a career in the software world, really focused on quality, process improvement, et cetera. So I spent over 20 years working through various different domains ranging from e-commerce to healthcare, and then spent my last 7 years in the aviation space, which was super cool. And basically, I would go into super chaotic software organizations to redefine all of their systems and processes to help them do things better, faster, cheaper. And there is a tie-in here. But all that to say, I have a really large background in certifications around project management, leaning things out, efficiencies, operations, et cetera. And got married later in life, started a family later in life. And shortly after my daughter was born, I was starting to really struggle with juggling a career in motherhood, strictly from the place of I had no control over my calendar. And try as I might, I could not get that baby to operate like a robot. Like, imagine that, right? And it just kept butting heads. And as she got a little bit older, we started preschool. It did not go real well for her, and it was just 2 days a week, 3 hours a day when she was 3. And by like the third week, when I got a phone call, I got one every day saying, "You need to come pick her up. Like, this is just, you need to come pick her up." That was kind of going on, along with one of those times when that phone rang and I had to leave to go get her. I was about to get on a call to present to a lot of bigwigs at the FAA, and had to call my boss to say, "I won't be there. Like, I'll be late." So all of this was just butting heads. And I was like, I loved what I did, but I needed control over my calendar. And at that time, a woman introduced me to a network marketing company. And I thought, well, maybe this could be an option or a solution for me to transition out of corporate, or at least reduce my hours. And I found success pretty quick in the direct sales business. And a lot of that had to do with how I was planning and managing my time. Because when I started this business, I was still working and had, this toddler. And so my real pivotal day was when someone innocently asked me when I was out with my daughter. At this time, she was about 4, and they said, "What do you do for fun?" They were just asking me, like, "Megan, what did you do for fun?" And I didn't have an answer to the question because I really couldn't remember the last time I'd just done something for me. So all of those things kind of converged at once, and it made me really take a step back and say, this is what you do for a living, Megan. You go into these organizations where it's chaos and deadlines, and you figure out better ways to get things done. So I threw away my beloved Franklin Covey planning system of over 20 years. That was really hard to do. And I said, let's take yourself on as a client. And so I set out a new way and new systems of planning and managing my time that worked with all of the unpredictability that I was doing, along with also, hey, I have this business that's really taking off, but oh, I'm still working. And so people started noticing like a difference. They're like, going to the gym? It's like, no, actually, I'm having time for myself again. And so I was teaching at a women in tech conference, and some women asked me, like, could I teach them what I was doing with my calendar? And so that started me on this journey of saying, could I take what I'm doing and make this a repeatable framework that could support other women? So I worked with these 5 women for 3 months, and they said it completely transformed their lives, and that was it. Like, that was the day I went, "I'm done. This is my calling." Sat down with my husband. I'm like, "It's time for me to hang up my corporate hat, and I'm going all in on this." And so that was really the foundation of where I am today running the Pink Bee, and we are an organization that teaches all things planning, organization, and productivity specifically for women because our needs are just different than our male counterparts.
That's awesome. Yeah, Megan and I have known each other, well, I say known each other
No, heck yeah.
virtually, for like 5 years, and I found her online, and I did a Pinterest course with you. Um, I think I won a planner from you early on, so I have one of your planners, and just all of the time management skills that I learned. And what I love about you is you are such a numbers girl. You are a probably spreadsheets are your dream come
They make
true.
me happy.
Yes, and I am not, but your analytical numbers functions brain is able to teach people who are not like that how to do systems and how to manage your time also. So I just appreciate you so much. I've learned so much. One thing that you say all the time is a task list is not a plan.
Yes.
So dive into that for
Now, this
us.
is usually now for the women listening, don't hang up, like, don't hit the stop button because you're probably like, if you're gonna tell me to get rid of my task list, I'm out of here. Because how am I supposed to get anything done? And especially when you are building a direct sales company, right? We are oftentimes taught everything is run by a list, right? The list of people that you're reaching out to, the list of the list of everything is operated in this idea of lists. But there's 3 fundamental things happening. They're very subtle, but they're very impactful when you are operating day to day from a task list. Because unfortunately, a lot of the teaching out there, when you're overwhelmed, juggling a lot, they always tell you the same thing. Do a brain dump in the morning, right? List everything that you've got. Then they tell you, identify your top 3, and I will tell you, I've wasted way too many hours of my life trying to get to the root of who started the top 3. There's no scientific evidence backing any of it. Someone said it once and it stuck. So we all say identify your top 3. Then you're supposed to do those first magically, and then, quote, just then do everything else.
Mhm.
And this is a recipe for disaster. And it keeps us in a perpetual state of what I call time debt, because how many of you actually get the list done every day? Like probably no one, or that one rare day you did, who knows? So you
Mhm.
wake up the next day, you rewrite half of yesterday's list, the parts that didn't get done, and then you add more. And it's this vicious cycle. So here's what happens when we operate this way. First and foremost, when you make your list, we never sit down and analyze how much would each one of those things take? And then how much time do I actually have to spend on this list today? Right. And most of the time, the math does not add up. Right. So you're probably listing out 9 hours of stuff, but reality is you've got about 3.5 hours available to you today. So right out of the gate, you're setting yourself up for disaster. Now, the second thing that's going on with this list is making decisions is one of the hardest things that we can ask our brain to do, especially when it's prioritization. So when you wake up every morning, your brain has a limited capacity of really good decision making skills. There's a reason why it's a lot easier for me to say no to a bag of Doritos at 11:30 in the morning than at 8 p.m. at night. It's not because I don't have willpower, it's because my brain is tapped out, the ability to make good choices is gone. So when you think about a list, let's say you've got 15 things on your list. When you ask your brain to go look at that list and say, what should I do first? That's really hard for it to figure out. So another way to think of this is, if I stood in front of you, Susan, with an apple and an orange in my hand and said, which one do you want? It'd be pretty easy, right? Maybe you pick the orange, Lisa picks the apple. But now I stand in front of you guys with a basket of 15 different pieces of fruit. I'm like, what piece of fruit do you want? It's like, oh my gosh, right? It's a lot harder. Well, you're making those micro decisions all day long every time you look at that list. So first there's 15 things on it. You have to pick something. Then you come back to it. Now there's 14. And so by the time 1, 2 o'clock in the afternoon hits, you've maxed out decision fatigue, right? How many of you at the end of the day, your family's like, what do you want to do for dinner? And you're like, for the love of God, would somebody else please just decide? Like, please don't make me do that. It's because your decision fatigue is tapped out. So when you're operating from lists every single day, you are hitting that decision fatigue point really, really early in the day. And then what happens is, again, then we start making bad choices. Not bad in the sense that you're doing bad things, but maybe how you're spending your time wasn't the most important. So when we're in that heightened anxiety of decision making, our brain does exactly what it's designed to do when you're in fight, flight, or freeze, is it says, how do I get a dopamine hit? How do I feel good? And the way you feel good is by checking something off your list. So what you subconsciously pick is the quickest win, and 99% of the time is one of the least important things,
Mhm.
right? So we're not working in that importance order. And then the third thing that's happening with that task list mode is in the heat of the moment in a given day when you're making your list, if you have a large project that you're working on or a goal, you're like, okay, I'm going to build that website, right? I've invested in it. I want to get that thing out there. But when you're making your list for the day, you're not going to write down build website. So you're like, well, there's no way I could get that done today.
Mhm.
And so you're never actually getting started on a lot of those bigger things because you're stuck in this just in time living. And so your intent with the task list is a good one. We don't want to forget things. We're wanting to make sure stuff is getting done. But then executing from it keeps us perpetually behind on our goals and always living in that heightened kind of state of overwhelm.
Mm.
I love that. I know that even from personal history of creating a task list, you always put the most daunting thing at the top and the easiest thing at the bottom. And then it's like, well, you know what? I'll just work from the bottom and check that off and and get that done, right? And it's just so crazy because yeah, you're really not accomplishing anything. And then you look the next day and you're like, oh my goodness, gotta add that to the list again. So I love that you're explaining that in terms of like how to take that overwhelm away from taking away that task list. Now I was just listening into a training that one of the trainings that you did recently, and I can't remember the terminology that you used, but it was when you're
Context
changing
switching?
yes, yes, and I'm like, "Oh my goodness," I'm like, I do that so often because I work from home. My office is in the main area of the house, so it's like people come in and they just start talking, and it's like your brain switches on and off, and that's hard to deal with, right?
Yeah. And it's something my husband and I have had really interesting conversations about is this difference of context switching versus multitasking. They're not the same thing. And there's really something really interesting with the way the female brain is designed versus the male brain. So when they have studied both brains, they see that the communication from the right to the left side in the female brain, those like little neurons are going way more frequently than our male counterparts, which is what leads women to tend to multitask and or context switch more. Because I will always tell my husband, in the heat of the moment, usually like, well, you don't have to context switch as much as I do. And he'll be like, I multitask all day long. I'm like, not the same thing. You are in one hat. You walk upstairs to your office. My husband works in construction and you're putting on your concrete construction hat. And yes, you are juggling. I mean, I hear it. He's juggling a lot, but it's all in that one context, right? Whereas for me and for most women, especially if you're in a caregiver role, if my kid's sick at school, they're not calling him first. My phone is the one that's ringing. I'm the one jumping in and out of the dogs, the kid, work, school. household stuff, ping, 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 ping. And then when my daughter comes home from school, similar to you, my office is on the main floor, whereas my husband is really tucked away. So I know when she comes home from school, like, don't even
Mhm.
pretend to do work. I just don't even put it in my plan anymore because if I try, it will be that where I'm trying to fit 5 hats on my head at the same time, answering the email, helping with homework while cooking dinner kind of a thing, and that's a recipe for absolute burnout.
Yeah. I love what you said in one of your trainings. You did talk about a brain dump, but then it was like, okay, pick the things that need to be done in the next 48 hours. That's what you're focusing on now. So you're looking at those time sensitive things. What maybe something that, and you've talked about this too, maybe something has been on your list day after day after day after week. Does it really need to be on
Yeah.
the list?
Is it there
It's
anymore?
time to move on.
Yeah,
So,
and what you're talking about, there's kind of 2 subtle ways to transition out of this task list road into actually creating a plan. And so there is a very systematic weekly planning process that I teach. We start with the basic version, which is a 5-step weekly planning process. And once we get comfortable with that, then we graduate to the advanced weekly planning, which is a 10-step process. Now, before you're like, how am I supposed to have time for that? Right? I do it in 15 minutes or less every week. So once you've got your planning inputs organized, the planning process becomes like muscle memory. But for a lot of women, it's like, I'm paralyzed, right? I'm completely paralyzed. I get this way anytime I come home from vacation, right? If I've been gone for a week or something, all of a sudden you walk in the door and reality hits. The laundry, the food, like you don't have anything, the emails piled up, the physical mail, all of that. And that's where I like to lean on what I call this 3-step ditch the overwhelm process. And it's a way to get yourself unstuck and back in motion, but it's not the way to operate forever because again, you're never going to start getting ahead. But it does start off with, all right, like I'll set a timer for 10 minutes. I'm not allowed to spend anything more than 10 minutes on what is everything that is stressing me out right now, right? From the dogs don't have any food to I still haven't built that website and anything and everything in between that is taking up space in your brain. And then I usually step away for like 5 minutes. I'm like, okay, step away from it once it's done and then come back with the lens of, all right, what on here truly is a have to in the next 48 hours, right? Or there will be like dire consequences. And for me, usually coming home from vacation, it's like, okay, there's no food in the house. Like I can order out once, but then tomorrow morning, like we need some food in the house. Or and I like to do it on sticky notes because then I can just pull off the sticky notes that are 48 hours, but then I take them to my calendar and I look at my next 48 hours. And now instead of just making a list, I'm creating a plan. When am I getting each one of these sticky notes done in the next 48 hours, right? Is it, hey, tomorrow after school drop off, I'm going to hit the grocery store before I come home? Like what exactly does it look like? And by just focusing on those 48 hours, it allows us to get in motion and it starts to quiet some of that anxiety. Then after the 48 hours, then I go back to that list that I brain dumped. And now I say, okay, from here to the rest of the week, what on here is a have to. And then I follow that same process. And at least that gets you over that hump when you're just feeling completely drowning and kind of gets you in motion for the week. And by the end of the week, now you're able to go revisit everything else there with a lot more intentionality and a lot less stress of that feeling like everything has to be done now. You can be a lot more rational with it because you're not quite so elevated.
That's great. Now, we're recording the podcast on October 6th, and I know that you have a new, I guess it's called like a training or a workshop or coming or launching today, which is called it was a top organization, right?
Operations today.
Operations,
Yes.
that's it. Yes. And it's all about ClickUp. Now, I'll be honest, I have a love-hate with ClickUp. I had to start using it because of my role with Becky Launder and the Modern Direct Seller. Oh my
Yes.
hi. So it's like I had to jump
Becky's
in
my
and now
ClickUp soulmate. We
yeah.
both love it.
And now I got Susan onto it because we're using it now for the podcast. So
Wonderful.
I'm all things ClickUp. So can you tell us a little bit more about top operations and
Yes.
sort of who it's for and what it's all about?
Yeah. So the core program here at the Pink Bee that we've been selling for over 5 years is called the Top Program. And that's really where women come to learn weekly and monthly planning mastery. And the business has grown so much over the last 5 years. And women that have been following me or other business owners that start to see how little I actually work, because I only work about 4.5 hours a day, Monday through Friday, and then even less in the summer. And we generate over 7 figures of income every single year. And so, how do you do that? And so my answer is always two ways. Number one, I'm the most consistent person you'll ever meet, thanks to my planning. But number two is my COO, Taryn. She's amazing, and she is the operations genius behind the business. So she is the one that has built all of our systems and templates inside of ClickUp and really is the mastermind behind that because she brings years of experience of getting inside of so many other businesses, along with the fact I ran teams for years as well. And so people started asking me, like, well, how can I get a Taryn? Like, how do I get Taryn? So at the beginning of this year, Taryn and I were brainstorming, and I said, hey, what if we gave you to everybody in the form of handing over our operational playbook inside of ClickUp? So we this last spring did a pilot with 15 or 50 businesses, and we built the ClickUp course. It is video, step-by-step video training, but then you get all of our templates. So it's like, okay, I need to figure out how to manage marketing, right? So you go grab all of our marketing templates and then the step-by-step training of how we use them. And with the 50 businesses, we wanted to try a variety of different ones to see, would this work? So we had everything from brick and mortars to women in direct sales to online business owners, to schools that actually came in with all of their staff, along with several nonprofit organizations. So we ran the gamut of this, and everybody had success with it. And really, when you think about it, I certainly don't have an MBA. And most women that fall into starting their own business, we don't go back to school and get MBAs or degrees and all of this, right? We love what we do. And so it really is on us to have to figure out how to learn, what does it mean to run a business? And when it comes to the operations of it, we need to realize this is a full-time career path for people that excel in operations. It's silly that we're beating ourselves up going, how come I can't figure it out? Well, because that's an entire career path, right? So we really wanted to empower as many business owners as possible to say, hey, we've done the heavy lifting. We're just going to give you a playbook that then you can go implement. So that way you're not spinning your wheels. Because so many people, they open up ClickUp or Asana or Monday.com and it's like, I don't even know where to start, right? Because you can do everything, you can't figure out what makes sense to implement. So this was really, part of our mission of bringing work-life harmony into the world for women. And this is really specifically designed for business owners so that you can step away from your business and it can run without you being there and you don't have to be the bottleneck in everything anymore.
Yeah, and to be that easy button for people, that's what people need.
Yeah. And it reduces the decision fatigue.
Yeah,
I
Yeah.
don't spend all day going, what do I need to be doing? I log into ClickUp and ClickUp goes, here's your plan for the day, Megan. I'm like, fantastic. And even with, talking about how you're using it to run your podcast, our podcast template, because we have a podcast as well, it's plug and play. So we're like, okay, this, episode number 317, the whole template comes over. It's auto populated with who does what and the due dates and everything. So we're not having to recreate all of that every single time.
yeah, so smart. I know you've talked about consistency a lot, and it was fun for me to listen to. I think it was your podcast episode, maybe it was last week or the week before. I was on a walk and listening, and it was kind of the 5-year journey and what we did this year and what worked and what didn't and how our financials came. But one thing you said is we have been consistent in what we're offering every single time. So maybe tie that into the average direct seller. What does consistency mean to their business?
And I'll even share with you specifically for me when I had my direct sales business, consistency for me meant testing and figuring out, because it's going to be different for each person, especially the business that you're in, right? But testing out and identifying what are the core activities that when I do them on a either daily or weekly basis, I see the needle moving in my business. And that might be, what's important to you might be growing customers, it might be growing your team, like wherever your goals are with it, you need to pick, here's my goal for my business. And it took some testing, right? Sometimes you try this type of that content didn't land, but let me try this. Okay, that landed, right? So is emailing once a week good or is emailing twice a week better? Like figuring out what those activities are for you and then actually doing it on a dedicated regular basis. Not, oh, we're running a promotion right now, so I'm going to jump in and email that list I haven't talked to in 10 weeks, right? Oh, I got really kind of fatigued on, I mean, how many times do we see I'm taking a break from social media. And then all of a sudden, 3 months later, they come back guns a-blazing because they just went to conference. And
Right.
now it's, 3 straight weeks of conference photographs and all the deals and come join my team. And so I believe when it comes to really running a solid, good direct sales business is deciding for yourself what platforms can you tell yourself that you can consistently show up on, whether it's an email list, whether it's Facebook, whether it's Insta, TikTok, whatever it is for you, what cadence can you honestly commit to, right? And hey, twice a week is better than silence for 4 weeks and then spamming for a week and then another silence, right? So figuring out what that cadence is. And then when you're building your plan for the week, an actual plan, not a task list, you're making the appointment with yourself on your calendar for when specifically you are actually doing that. And so when I think back to my direct sales business, I consistently showed up on social media 4 days a week. And I used tools like SendShare back then. I think it was a really great one to support the business. So I had one day a week where I sat down, I had an appointment with myself for an hour to plan out my social media content and get it scheduled. That was a consistent thing that I did. I also consistently emailed my list. I always made sure I captured my own emails, right? And I would email every single week. An email would go out to my entire list of customers, prospects, people who had opted in to hear from me. They heard from me every single week, no matter what, even if it meant planning ahead and writing ahead. And then I had time set aside 2 times every day for 15 minutes in the morning and in the evening where I would check messages, both from customers and from team. I was never available 24/7, ever. And so that was part of my morning routine and my end of day routine. And just those 4 things, again, if you look at the math of those, that wasn't a whole lot of time, but the consistency of it is what I firmly, attribute to paying off. That was part of their everyday and their every week routine. It was expected that I was going to be there.
Yeah.
I love what you just said that you weren't available 24/7 because I think that's one of the biggest things that the average direct seller makes themselves available because they don't want to miss out on the sale or they don't want to miss out from losing that team member. So, yeah, that's like a huge aha, right?
And
That's
I think, the other thing to think about with that, when you are available 24/7, you may have a customer or friend or somebody who's, interacting with you and they're seeing how available you are. And now they're thinking, I don't have time for this. There's no way I could have that business. Right. Whereas, I was still working full time. And so I had women, they're like, hey, I noticed like you kind of always, always reply in the evening. Like, are you really able to run this business and just kind of sending out, answering questions and stuff at night? I was like, I sure am. So now they're, oh, well, hey, I could do that. Right. I too am busy all day long. Realize people are watching how you're showing up and it does it look like this is consuming you, and if it is, it's gonna look like it's consuming you, and it might actually turn some people off. I think one of the phrases I bought into early and then realized I think we need to stop saying it in the direct sales world was I kept being promised that I could build a business in quote the nooks and crannies of my day. right? And I think that that was a promise I was given. And I thought, okay, great, because I don't have any more time, but I've got nooks and crannies. I do not believe you can build, like, truly build a business in nooks and crannies of your day because
Yeah.
number one, they're not intentional, right? It's like all of a sudden you're like, oh, I got to carpool early. I've got 10 minutes. Let me
Yeah.
do something. And what you're going to choose to do is probably not very meaningful. So it tends to be this very kind of reactive knee jerk thing instead of thought out work. And then what it also does is it starts to chip away in your own personal life, meaning you never get to take a minute, right? When I show up at my daughter's school 15 minutes early, you know what I do? I read a book, I close my eyes, I
Mm,
rest, I refill. Sometimes I just pull up Instagram reels because I need a good laugh, and my sisters and I, that's our like that's our space. But it means that you don't have to be this hustle, 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 make every minute count, fill up every nook and cranny, as opposed to instead, what if you just went, you know what? I'm gonna let all those messages queue up. And after I've rested, maybe after dinner, I'll sit down for 30 minutes and get my responses and then move on with my day, right? So I think you'll have far more success having intentional, thoughtful, scheduled windows of time, appointments with yourself as opposed to make every minute count and squeeze it in with nooks and crannies.
yeah. When people say, "Oh, you can work while you're on the beach and on vacation," I'm like, "No, that's
Don't.
my sacred time."
But I did it. I mean, yeah, I bought into it, and after about 6 months of that, I was like, "I'm exhausted." It's like,
Yeah,
there's gotta be a different way, you know? So, yeah, now vacation is like vacation. I'm checked
yeah,
out.
yeah, good. So one of the things
Good.
I noticed on your podcast also is we read the book, what's it called? 10x moves. Is that what it's called? 2x to 10x. Yeah. So you talked about that on your 5-year journey, how you let go of a major part of your income in order to shift your focus, and it was a 10x move. So do you want to share about that?
Yeah. So, I love that book. I always have to read those kind of 10x things. I have to get myself in the right headspace of like, because I will get sucked into overworking because I love
Mm,
what I do. Like, if you
yeah.
love what you do, it's hard not to. So I always have to like take a breath and go, okay, Megan, everything you're going to read here needs to work for you in the boundaries you have with your time. So like I always have to be thinking that way. But when we were really, it got to the point with the business where I knew what I was doing was not gonna scale to a 10x. So I was doing still, I would run the group program and it was kinda done in cohort style, and then I was taking one-on-one work. So people would join the program and then they would get private calls with me.
Mhm.
And that one-on-one work is very, very lucrative. If you are
Mhm.
doing one-on-one consulting work, you can charge a really high penny for it. But at some point you run out. There's
Mhm.
only so many hours in the day. And at that point, offering that one on one work was the most profitable part of the business. But I am a raging introvert, which most people don't believe when they meet me. I'm also an empath. And so one on one work is really draining for
Mhm.
me. And so I got to a point where not only my calendar couldn't support it anymore, but it was impacting my family life because I felt like all of my students were getting the best of me and my
Mhm.
family was getting the drained leftovers at the end of the day. And so I had to make a decision to say, in order to 10x the company, I can't 10x myself. Like, time is time. I'm going to have to stop offering one on one work,
Mhm.
which meant cutting off about 50% of the revenue for the business to then say, and now how do we pivot to then 10x? So we took a huge dip by cutting off, half of the business to then say no more one-on-one work, went back through the program, made tweaks and shifts to it to ensure that it could always be We call it evergreen. People are joining the top program at literally every single day. We have new people enrolling in the program. And then the coaching is done once a month in a live group setting, but they can also still ask me questions through very designated channels. So similar to my direct sales day, if I check in the morning and I check in the evening and all the questions are there, I knock them all out at once and then I go about my day. But that was a you know, huge upfront hit, but now we are more than 10x past where we were with revenue with the business then, and I work less.
Mm,
So it's a total
that's a
win.
win-win.
A win-win for sure, but I'm sure it was scary at the time, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Oh, it was because it was finally to the point where it was like, okay, I'm not gonna have to go back to corporate. We've solidified this thing. And it's like, so, over dinner, so I'm gonna be making some shifts. So that paycheck we've gotten accustomed to, well, here's what's gonna happen.
oh, that's awesome. All right. I'm all about websites, and as soon as I knew you were coming on to the podcast, I'm like, I have to go and check out her website. And what I found is that you have a ton of training, whether it's paid or free, and you have a ton of resources. So if somebody is looking to just jump in and learn everything that they need to know or learn from Megan, where is the best place for them to go?
Yeah, great question. I always tell people if you're brand new to my world, you want to learn a little bit more about what is this time management framework and also get a flavor for how I teach, right? Because not everybody is going to be a match. Like we all have different learning styles, we all have different teaching styles. I tell everyone to go download my app. So I have an app in the App Store and Google Play. It's called the Pink Bee, all one word. You'll see a hot pink bee on the logo. If you see pink, you know it's me. And in there, if you go in and create an account, there's 2 free trainings already loaded for you in the app. So one of them is going to really introduce you to my time management framework. You'll actually get some actionable things that you can walk away with from there. And then we've packaged up another training of kind of all the top tools that we use here at the Pink Bee to help you get going on that. So I always encourage people start there because that's going to really give you a good foundation for, our visions, our values, and our mission here. If you are, we just recently, at the time this aired, I will have just wrapped up my once a year. It's our largest event of the year. That's called Planapalooza. I only teach this once a year live at this setting, and it's where I teach my annual planning process for women. So you've missed the live event, but we have packaged up the entire workshop into a replay. So you'll actually see information about that on the website. But if you just go to megansumrell.com/plan, you can see where you can actually go grab all the replays from that. We only do it once a year. And we only make the replays available for a very short time. And then we kind of pull that down and then we regroup for the next year.
Yeah. So where did the love
Awesome.
of bees come from? Why the bee logo?
It's so funny. People don't ask me that, but it's kind of an interesting story. So, um, prior to really launching the Pink Bee, I had a short stint where I was the co-founder of a software company. It was actually a CRM for direct sellers, and Bee was in that name. And I did all of the training I was like the training front of the software company. And so people knew me as the bee lady. And so women started calling me the queen bee, and my DMs would flood with bee this, bee that. People would send me bee stuff, and I loved it. And if you actually research the whole beehive mentality and all of that, it's pretty powerful when you do that. And so
Yeah.
we shut the software company down, and I still had I had this passion for the bees and for the community and for the hive and all of that. And when I first started what is now the Pink Bee, it was just under my name. It was just, Megan Sumrell, because I didn't know what this was going to turn into. And so as the business started growing, I kind of took a step back, was like, all right, I need to like brand this, because it really has grown into a company. It's not just me anymore. And so deciding what to name it, I still had this draw to the bees.
Yeah.
And I have always loved the color pink my whole life. And I remember going to one of my first job interviews, and my roommate at the time, I had on a pink blouse under, like, I'm old, so we had to still wear like pantyhose and stuff to interview. So I had on my little black suit with my pink blouse. And she's like, "You better change your blouse." And I was like, "Why should I change my blouse?" She goes, "No one's gonna take you serious, like, no one's gonna hire you with a pink blouse." And
Wow.
20-year-old Megan took the pink blouse off, and then a few years later, when I was presenting at a tech conference, it was mostly men, I had a pink blazer on backstage, and the guy running the event pulled me aside and he said, "Did you pack any other blazers?" And he said, "No, no one will take you seriously if you go out on stage in a pink blazer," because it was pretty much all men.
Wow.
And so that's just always stuck with me of, like, I felt like for years being feminine was something to hide,
Mm,
and that I had to, like, hide my motherhood, hide my femininity, hide all of that or you wouldn't be taken seriously. And so I kind of view this birth of the pink bee as me getting old enough to not care what people think anymore. But really saying, you know what, this is a feminine planning system. We don't need to hide our femininity and we need community together. And so
yeah.
that really was kind of how the pink bee got merged together.
And I used that
I
CRM,
love that.
like the first CRM that I used. I remember
Yes.
that now that you're saying that. And
Yeah.
then I'm like, okay, what are you using now? Because I remember when you took it down and then we went into Doe and I used the Doe app
Yes.
for a number of years and then they kind of fell apart and
They
we
went
need,
down. Mhm.
yeah, we talk about that
I
all the time.
know.
We need a CRM for direct sellers. So I remember that.
Yeah, and it's interesting. Everyone I see that I'm like, "Okay, this is gonna be the one." It's like they try and please too many people, and then it ends up not working well for direct sellers or I don't know, but I feel like there's still that opportunity out there for something really good.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
Right. So I love that you're talking about the bees because 20 years ago, when I started my career in direct sales, I started off with Mary Kay. And Mary Kay, it was like she was all about the bee. And, I still remember to this day that them telling us the little story about, physics doesn't tell the bee that, based on the size of its wings and the size of its body, it should not be able to fly. Right. So it's like you can do the impossible if you're not told that you can't. So I absolutely love that you have the beehive and everything about your brand. I love it. So
It was interesting. I was in a mastermind of some business owners when I was branding it, and, they were all like, "No, this is a terrible idea. Like, this is a terrible idea. It doesn't tell anybody what you do. Like, you need the name that tells people what you do." I just remember I kind of paused. I was like, "Well, Nike doesn't like the word Nike doesn't make you go, oh yeah, sports goods, or like
Right.
Amazon doesn't make you go, oh, I said, so like, no." And a couple of the women they're like, "Well, that's awfully bold of you to compare yourself to them." And in that moment, I was like, "And the pink bee it is. Like, there we go. Watch me."
love it.
Surefire way to get me to do something is tell me I can't. Like, just and now we go.
So I don't know if Susan told you, but I always ask our guests, for a favorite quote or a piece of advice that they think that every direct seller needs to hear. So I'm sure
Yeah.
you have something. So
I do. And it relates back to my days in direct sales. So, I had a niece who passed away in 2021, and she was like my second daughter to me. And she was over for a sleepover, and this would have been when she was about 18ish or so. And I was sitting on the couch doing my evening check-in while we were watching a movie with my direct sales business, and it got a pretty nasty, DM as we can get. We can get some hate. Anyone in business needs to be prepared for some nasty messages. And, still in motion, recovering people pleaser over here. Every one of those, hit hard. Um, and so I got this message and my heart just sank. And my niece was like, "Oh, what's wrong?" And I handed my phone over to her and I showed her the message and she started laughing. And I'm like, "Well, that was not the response I was expecting." And she just shook her head and she called me May May, because that's how she could say Megan when she was little. And it just kind of stuck. And she just goes, May May, haters gonna hate. You got to let it roll off and move on. And that stuck with me. It still sticks with me. And I mean, I still get hate mail every now and again. And I just hear my niece going, haters gonna hate, and just laughing it off. So I would encourage everyone, we got to have some thick skin and realize haters gonna hate, and it's not a
Yeah,
reflection on you.
so true. Anything else you wanna share, Meg?
I would say I feel like this can't be said loud enough to women out there. Your worth is not defined by your productivity, right? By other people's view of your productivity. Kind of tying back to that, like, make every minute count kind of message, right? The hustle message. And I think women in particular, social media, the world we live in, everything today wants to constantly make us feel like we're just not doing enough. And so we get stuck in these being busy patterns and feeling guilty for taking time for ourselves, for slowing down, for maybe doing a little bit less to then do more, right? And so and it's something I have to remind myself of every single day is that our worth is not defined by the world's definition of our productivity, and that you are in control of defining what your worth really is, right? And to own that and to get really, really comfortable with that. And rest and relaxation is 100% a form of productivity.
So good.
All right. So if our viewers or our listeners wanted to connect with you, where would be the best place for them to find you?
Yeah, I would say either grab the app in the App Store or just head on over to thepinkbee.com. It'll take you over to the website and we'll have all the latest and greatest of what's going on out there. I've got links to the podcast, all of that there as well.
Okay. And can they find you on social at all or?
Absolutely. I'm mostly active on Instagram, so you can find
Okay.
me at Megan Sumrell. And if you've listened to this episode, shoot me slide into my DMs, say hey. I do actually check those. It is me. So I'd love to meet you over there.
All right. Well, Megan, I appreciate you taking the time. I know that how valuable your time is. So thank you so much for joining us. And I am sure that the listeners have taken many notes and lots of ahas. And I really encourage you, go download the app. It is full of great resources. I was binging the trainings over the weekend. So I love that you have the app. And thank you so much for joining us. And we will see everyone on next week's episode of The Other 99%. Take care, everyone. Bye.
That's a wrap for today's episode of The Other 99%. We just want to say thank you. It truly means the world to us that you're here. Lisa and I absolutely love creating these episodes for you, and we're so grateful to have you in our community. If you enjoyed today's conversation, be sure to like, share with a friend, leave a review, and subscribe so you never miss a new episode. We drop fresh content every Tuesday. Got thoughts, questions, or ideas? Leave us a comment. Want to be a guest on the show? We would love to chat with you. Apply by clicking the link in the show notes. Thanks again for spending time with us today, and we'll catch you on the next episode of The Other 99%.